News breaking from Who's Views. Good evening. Reports by local people that an unidentified flying object flew low over Blackcastle last night have been scorned by official sources. They should get their eyes tested, said a spokesman. Blackcastle is the last place on Earth that aliens would want to visit. We've sent the Whotastic panel to investigate. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Who's Views. Hello, and welcome to my Whotastic panel this evening. I've got Phil.
Hello.
And Alistair.
Don't mind me. Don't mind me.
He's come prepared, obviously, on that one. Good evening, guys. How are you?
Good.
I'm good.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Justin.
Smashing. And hello, welcome to everybody that's watching us live at the moment. Nice to see you all. Yes, so this Who's Views Reviews, we are going back to 1980 and a little bit of a twist for you because we are going to review Doctor Who Weekly's The Star Beast, first issued in 8 parts. 8 parts, guys. You don't get that these days, or do you? I'm not so sure.
Well, the Liberation of the Daleks is it not about 10 parts now? It's one of the longest in years. So
wow. Well, possibly, yeah, because probably, yeah.
Yeah,
but this one,
it's still going. So, because I guess it's still got. I don't know, and this is not a rumor, and I assume that it's got an issue to go because then it will link up to the specials. I assume
the specials. Yeah.
That's not an inside thing, but you think it must finish now.
It's not an inside thing
because it's a gap, isn't it? The whole gap. But it is. Yeah. But I think that's the longest strip in many a year. So because there was.
Well, this was certainly the Star Beast was certainly typical of the time. As you can see that from the scroll, it was 1980 over, written by Pat Mills and John Wagner, with Dave Gibbons doing the artist there. So a classic team doing all that as well.
That's the issue it began in. That one there, issue 19.
Absolutely, and I can beat you there actually, Alistair, because look at this. There they are. They're the 8 issues there. They're the covers of all the 8 issues, if you're going to look for it. That's what we had to deal with back in the day between February and April 1980, all edited by Des Skin as well. So looking at this, the Star Beast, wow. Memories that I have over the Star Beast. I'm rereading it for this show. I tell you something, I got that warm feeling of I'll get these comics every Thursday night, and my dad coming in and putting them down. There's your latest one, or me having to go to the shop and getting them on the Thursday and paying over the 12p and reading this. I mean, it's just such a walk down memory lane. I don't know if you guys, what feelings you guys get from this, but yes, they were published, written, as I said there. We've got some pictures here of the guys responsible. Pat Mills, these are all legends, by the way, in their own right. We've got John Wagner, and of course the art by Dave Gibbons, and just for good luck, there he is. There's Mr. Skin, back in the day there. So, I mean, wow, the Star Beast, and it started as the way we've started our show tonight, with breaking news. And look at the art on this, guys, as well. I mean, this was something at the time that Doctor Who was aiming for. Let's be nice. The TV Doctor Who was aiming for. What do you think, Phil?
It's proper Flash Gordon stuff, this, isn't it? I mean, you could take Brian Blessed shouting "Gordon's alive" over the top of that, and it wouldn't look out of place. It's this brilliant kind of 50s, I don't know, style, like classic retro sci-fi. And I mean, my memories of this, I guess, are a bit different to yours because, as we discussed prior,
Here we go. Go on, say it.
Drop it in. I wasn't around when it first came out, even though I'm still wretchedly old. So my first encounters of it would have been in back issues, probably sat in the back of Galaxy 4 when I used to work there as a student. And more recently, I've got the old compilation to reread it in.
Absolutely.
But you're right. It does just give you that proper, like, I don't know, nostalgic feeling, like old annuals and stuff. That kind of adventure.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Alistair?
Yeah, for me, very much it's nostalgia, like you said, Justin. That it's. I mean, I think it's a great bit of work that transcends just purely. Works on other levels other than pure nostalgia. But yes, for me, absolutely nostalgic. I got the weekly I was 8 or so when it came out, 8.5 when this was running. So I was probably the sort of target age for it, I guess. And just loved this strip, but loved getting it every week. I can't remember if I had it on order by this point, but I can still remember the shop that it was. You got it and you went on a Friday night and you got it there and things like that. I think I got it ordered later, and then the news agent started cocking up the stuff didn't come on time, so we cancelled that, and I had to go and get it myself and trade the UK to find, particularly when I went to Doctor Who Monthly, the distribution was terrible. And
there was a hiccup there, wasn't there?
I was buying in Blackpool and holidays, in Scarborough and holidays and things like this. But the weekly was, I think when it was a weekly, it was still pretty available. It was still quite readily available in this sort of first few months. But I remember in the winter, and then it'd be going into the spring. So it was like spring arrived sort of midway through this. But yeah, I was absolutely just, I was getting Target books as well. But it was this Doctor Who Weekly and Target books were like, your whole week revolved around that, really, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And what you mentioned there as well, again, that's what I got from rereading the Star Beast here as well, because it was in the dark months, like we're getting into now.
Yeah.
And the brilliant thing about this was extra Doctor Who as well, because, it was on the television. It was always on the television in those days, if you remember. But, here we had this extra element to Doctor Who, filling in those Thursday nights for you. And it did seem to go on a long time. I was quite surprised when I look back at the old weekly comics, especially this one for the Star Beast. They're quite short. They're only a few pages long. Hence why they could put them over weeks and weeks and weeks, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, they're only typically 4 pages per issue. That's right. Because it was four pages. This one's 8 weeks. So that was 2 16s. So they could run it in a 16-page US comic, which, they were going to do it. Eventually was Marvel Premiere. That was going to run. They never got to the Star Beast, actually. They only ran the first 2 strips, Iron Legion and
City of the Damned. That's right.
So they never got to the Star Beast and Marvel Premiere. It took another 5 years or something before this.
That's amazing to think. We were so lucky as well.
It's always designed for American reuse, and that's why it falls as 4 times 4 is 16 pages in the US comic book. And episode 5 of Star Beast here in the weekly would have been episode 2, part 2 in the States, which is why it starts with the fantastic splash page of the Doctor trying to get Meep on the bus. So that
we'll come to that in a second, because I want to look at that artwork, because I want to talk about the artwork, but I just want to say hello to everybody watching us this evening. We do have some of our regulars, but Garbage is really rubbing it in like you did, Phil. He was 4. Yeah,
I can beat you. I was still a year away.
I was still a little bit. Oh God! Pete's saying here it was a mere thought when they were released. The thought of 60. Well, yeah, whatever. Pete's also saying that 2008. I mean, that's this whole thing about these comic strips. They really, really help. And Garbage is also saying he has no info on the Star Beast at all. So yes, this show hopefully will help you, Pete. Garbage. Hopefully that will help you there, mate. So yeah. So let's talk about the artwork on this. So we've had that first frame there, for which I quoted at the top of the show what was going on there. I mean, that is stunning artwork.
It's great.
And it does carry on, doesn't it? Because what happens is, what gets you about this is every particular cell, frame, whatever you want to call it, is just, I mean, these were of their day. They were absolutely beautiful. And they really, really stand out. And we've got this one that you've mentioned as well. Phil, well, both of you, you like this. This was another. Look at that! Look at that! Isn't that fantastic?
But you can properly hear Tom saying it about, you've got to let me on the bus because the future of the galaxy is at stake. I mean, it's fantastic. And actually, despite the fact I've reread this about 4 times in the last few days, I didn't even notice that the old Meep's there with his gun at that point.
What? There he is there. He is.
I hadn't noticed him. I'd still kind of saw him as being this kind of thing that the bus conductor could mistake for a pet. But no, it just makes it even more ridiculous.
Yes, I haven't noticed because they've got their back to him. So
yeah. The brilliant thing about it, though, is that this whole time of Doctor Who, and this strip especially, it's so British, and it captures the Doctor Who theme, if you the whole flavor of Doctor Who in these strips. I mean, it's all there. the Fourth Doctor. We'll see what you guys think about the Fourth Doctor in this, but he's all over the place, but he's in control. He is very Fourth Doctor. I mean, that picture we just shown there itself, that is British. I mean, it's a British bus. There's a British bus sign. And this is what brought this back to me when I'm rereading this, is the fact that you could relate to this as a young person as well. You knew where Blackcastle, where this whole thing, I mean, Blackcastle, just for anybody outside the UK that's watching, doesn't exist. It's made up. It's one of those, well, actually, no, there is a real one, but it wasn't that one.
I was going to ask you guys that in my head, Blackcastle is always in the north.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was north. Yeah, it was North Coast. Definitely.
Because I don't think there's any reference to where it is. I don't think there's any specific reference to where it is. It doesn't say where Blackcastle is. But despite the accent, I was born in Scotland, but moved when I was very young to northwest of England and lived outside a town called Blackburn. And Blackburn looked exactly like that, with those back-to-back terrace houses that you see in that opening splash, and the sort of lanes down the back, Coronation Street, basically. That was the area that I kind of grew up in, looked exactly like that. So for me, I was now back in Scotland by the time I read this, but it reminded me so much of that. So it really did come to life for me because I grew up in the northwest in Lancashire. So for me, Blackcastle's in Lancashire. I don't think there's anything to say there is. I've always assumed that because I grew up.
I had that feel.
Maybe for other people, they thought it was where they grew up. You know,
yeah.
So maybe that's
maybe. Well, we all three of us have got northern roots, if you like, and northern. We all touch base with the north in some way at some point. And so, yeah, I get that feeling as well. I mean, as a little boy growing up in the northwest of England, I thought it was down the road as well. I thought it was so familiar. I thought it was around Liverpool and all this sort of stuff. But the artwork, as we say, is absolutely fantastic. This is a continuation of what happens there. The Doctor puts the scarf onto the Meep, and onto the bus they go. And it's just so British. I mean, even those lovely, look at that. Oh, no, please don't let them sit next to me. That still happens on buses.
It's a great line. It's a brilliant line.
It's so typical of being British. It's so today.
It is so British, isn't it? But it's the first one, I think. Apart from the opening of the Iron Legion, which is in the English village, which is that sort of place that Doctor Who lived in, the android invasion and the awakening. Well, at that point, but those kind of English village things, the demons and things like that. So it kind of started there, and then within 3 pages, it had gone to this futuristic Roman Empire, and it was, I think they were trying to do big budget things. So it was like the big hardware and the big Roman amphitheaters and all this kind of thing. And then City of the Damned was like a space age city, this huge with all the walkways, and these huge domes and things like this. Whereas this was the first one that was very British. I don't think it was particularly British till this point. And I wonder if, because you had, the guys from 2000 AD, they were all, Mills, Wagner, Gibbons were all 2000 AD. And it felt very 2000 AD. It felt quite American. Like Judge Dredd was like an Americanized strip, which eventually did become Coles to Newcastle. They were able to get the Americans to switch on to what was essentially a British take on American comics. And this just feels less Americanized. The previous two feel quite Americanized for me. Well, not a bad thing. It's just a very big budget and very glitzy kind of post-Star Wars things. This is so British. This is much more Doctor Who. But even then, it's even more Doctor Who than Doctor Who was at that time. Because that fantastic panel we saw with the bus, this is the first time I've used a 5A bus to escape from aliens. And it is. You've never seen the Doctor on a bus, have you? You've seen Ian and Barbara get the bus at the end of The Chase, London 1965 and all that. But I don't think the Doctor's ever got on a bus in Doctor Who before that. So, whereas now he does. I think it's a real precursor to the 2005 onwards revival. And I guess that's why he's bringing it back, because he loves it so much, I guess.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Phil?
I was just going to say, though, building on the whole getting on the bus thing, and then it being that town down the road, it's all just bringing it close to you. I mean, this could be happening in the next town along, if your mum and dad are driving down the road, which they probably wouldn't in them days. That could be the town where this UFO's crashed. And it's it just brings it makes it relatable for you as a kid of the early 80s.
Well, do you know what else? Guys, made it ahead of its time as well, this comic strip? And looking at this, you see this now. It's the inclusion of one Angela Rippon, everybody. There she is. reading the news, because of course she was a huge newsreader at the time. She was absolutely 100% relevant. She's still around today, reading the news, dancing her socks off. You know, she was very famous. But this was Trinity Wells, decades before Trinity Wells, or whatever the modern newsreader version was. And sometimes I think, I wonder if the Russell and the production crew loved these comic strips so much they influenced some of what they were. You know, but isn't that brilliant? I mean, I remember this. Although there's Angela Rippon in this comic strip, it was brilliant.
It wasn't, you know, as I say, I was 8.5 when I read it. It wasn't lost on me. I immediately knew it was Angela Rippon. Even she's not named, obviously, but you knew straight away who it was. Because she was a big, she was really quite famous because she'd done Morecambe and Wise a couple of years before with that famous appearance, and she was being impersonated on Not the 9 o'clock News by Pamela Stevenson at the time as well. So she was a real kind of public figure, a well-known face. So, but that's the thing, is that, you know, if you're doing a strip aimed at the British market but hoping to sell it to the Americans, you don't put Angela Rippon in it. And that's why I love this strip so much, because they do put, you know, Route Master buses in and Angela Rippon in it, and that's what makes it kind of the best of probably of any of the strips actually, in certainly Doctor Weekly and even the early monthlies as well.
Yeah, I mean that is a lovely thing to do, though, Phil, isn't it? When you're seeing something like this pop up in a comic strip, I mean, it does bring home this quintessential. Oh well, this is a British comic. It's absolutely wonderful. It's sort of tongue-in-cheek humor, isn't it?
It is, and it's again that thing. It's making it now. Well, now for them, it's relatable. It's where you are, and it could happen to you. And who knows? You could be off with the Doctor, you know, tomorrow when a UFO crashes in a factory near you. And I did spot the Angela Rippon as well, because I think I asked you just as we were sort of setting up. It's supposed to be Angela Rippon. So,
yeah, it really is.
Not even lost on me.
The other thing that makes it this, let's talk about the Doctor in this strip, because again, now that I'm the age I am now, and you look back at this, I can still, as I'm trying to put over, I can still feel what my 10-year-old self was thinking about this, and why I love this strip. And I can remember, you know, just devouring it every single week. But the Doctor is very much the Doctor, and this frame has stayed with me for my whole life. You know, I'm going to build after this gig.
Yeah. I didn't know which picture you were going to bring up there, but when you said this has been in my mind, I thought, I wonder if it's the Fizz gig. It's that excitement, isn't it? That's totally captures him. Totally.
It totally does. I mean, when you look at that, look, it's an iron, it's a torch, there's a hairdryer in there. It's so typically the Doctor, isn't it? You know, and he's just gone.
Beautiful piece of kit.
Yeah.
I will throw in, though, a counterpoint, if I may, and be controversial. There's the point where he uses the lasers on the spaceship to shoot the Wrath that are attacking Sharon. Okay, and he says, something about, you know, he learned it at the Gallifrey Academy, whatever. And then a bit later, admonishes the Meep for shooting a Wrath with a gun in exactly the same way. And he's like, oh, you didn't need to do that. It was very cold-blooded. And... it seems a bit.
It was perhaps a warning shot what the Doctor fired. I don't think it hits anyone.
You know, study the picture now. Yeah, perhaps. But it did look a bit like, well, come on, mate. You just did it. Why is it?
I don't know. I actually, until you said that, I hadn't actually registered that, to be quite honest. I was just saying, you know, oh my goodness, yeah. But yeah, you mean he's been a bit hypocritical in the story?
A little bit. And I didn't know if it was a bit out of character to be, I don't know if I can imagine Tom just firing a laser at him. I think it would be something cleverer, like throw a jelly baby in a corner or, you know, make some distraction.
Fair point. I suppose if they're trying to do it in a comic strip, though, it needs to be fairly quick.
I know.
I don't know, but it's a fair point. There's other things we can. I mean, this is another particular point here where the Doctor and the Beep are talking and chatting. Another element of this being very, very British is there's Mrs. Higgins in the back there. You know, it was typical of a lot of the housewifies, as we used to call them, of the day. I don't know what the neighbours are going to think. It's just absolutely superb. It's brilliant, you know. And I love the fact that the Fourth Doctor at this point is still not quite sold, because he's still trying to find out what's going on as well in this you know, in this story. He's like, okay, I've got this thing here, this furry thing who's going, oh, look at me, meep, meep, meep. And then there's these other things that are coming along who's encountered before at the beginning of the story by accident, because he tried to switch the light on. He thought it was a squeezing a light switch. But again, look at the art on this stuff, everybody. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I love as well, I mean, if you look at the speech bubbles there, you've got those little weird things to suggest it's an alien speech. Yeah, I mean, this was great stuff, wasn't it, back in the day?
I think Dave Gibbons did his own lettering. He does because it's still that lettering now. And I think you can get an electronic font, you can get a computer font, which is based on Gibbons' lettering.
Oh, really?
So I'm pretty sure he's always done his own, like Watchmen and stuff was always him. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he always did his own lettering. So that little bubbly thing to give it alien speech, I think, would be his invention.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Dave Gibbons, sing praise to Dave Gibbons. I mean, in terms of anyone who did, Doctor Who artists, a lot of Doctor Who artists are book artists or illustration artists, but in terms of regular comic strip artists, I think Gibbons is probably the best that's ever done it, ever. I don't know. There's Haylock and Linfield and good colour stuff and Countdown and TV Action, amazing. But I just think in terms of capturing the character, in terms of the settings, in terms of just the number of the length of time he did it, Gibbons always the best Doctor Who strip artist ever. I can't think of any. I mean, there's great ones even recent years, Geraghty and Collins and so on. But for me, Gibbons is the man. I have to agree that he is. He's just so good. Although it would have been interesting to see what Brian Bolland would have done, because Brian Bolland was the other artist on the weekly, and he did a couple of sample pages, which did look a bit weird, actually. I think I prefer Gibbons' take on it, but Bolland's probably the best artist ever for me, comic artist.
I know what you mean. What you mean there, Alistair. I'm going to agree with you, to be quite honest, because this was obviously, Phil, you came in a little bit later to Doctor Who Weekly, Doctor Who Monthly, but when you started getting Doctor Who Weekly, this brand new comic, never been around before, never been tried properly like this before either. And you get this comic strip, that's the one everything else has to follow. So I think that's possibly where we're coming from as well, because I still look at some of the comic strips today and go, they're no Gibbons, are they? But when you look at some of this stuff, I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, there's this particular one here. Now, how do you guys call it? Because for years and years and years, I've been calling these the Roth Warriors, but you said Wraith, didn't you, Phil?
I think I've vary it so I'm not wrong. So at least once I hit it correctly. But I think Roth.
I always thought Wrath, so I've always gone with Wrath. And of course, we're about to get a definitive answer to that, aren't we?
We will do. But when you look at this artwork as well, to take a script and to produce these creatures, I mean, this is another quintessential bit here where these creatures are in somebody's kitchen, which is, you can't swing a cat in it. And yet there's these big insecty type creatures have got into the kitchen. Where is the Doctor? Answer or die. Then he appears. Cooey, I'm here. I've come to see you. And then the next thing you know, they're having tea. Tea and cake. It's just genius. But again, look at the artwork on that. It's absolutely beautiful. And this is now iconic art, And there's Mrs. Higgins on the top left.
Panel they used for a competition a few weeks later. They used it as a competition thing, and you had to spot the spaceships hidden in the drawing. So it was like a blow up of that to half a page. Absolutely. I think it was some point just slightly after, maybe the new look, which came towards the end of this strip. And so I remember that panel specifically because it was reused for the competition a few weeks later.
Yeah. I loved all that sort of stuff.
It's having tea, the Doctor having tea in Coronation Street. I mean, it was such I wouldn't have realised it was a weird thing at the time. It just felt right, and it felt evocative, and it felt like a setting you could understand immediately. But it was a weird setting because Doctor Who had really never been set in that kind of, working class houses.
Normal sort of.
North of England. Because of course the new TV version is not going to be in the north, is it? Because it's going to be Donna, so presumably it'll be.
Well, it's all in London from that, isn't it? We'll come to that. We'll come to that later on because we're going to get to that there. But what I want to talk about, I mean, we've got to introduce now. We've mentioned him, and he is a him in this original version. The Meep is a him. So let's talk about him because, this is the Star Beast. Really, when you look at it. Yeah, Meep, and this is when he's found in the shed. He's found in the shed by Sharon, and look at it. I mean, for kids at the time, you just went, oh, didn't you? And that was the brilliant thing about this entire story, wasn't it? Because you know there is a twist to this, and if you don't know anything about the Star Beast now, and you don't want to know anything, turn away now. But don't please switch off.
Spoiler alert!
Do subscribe, because the whole thing about this is, well, he's not really what he seems to be. And again, this artwork, I mean, look at that. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the famous picture that's been around now for goodness knows how many years. Da, da, da.
Yeah, it crops up, isn't it?
I mean, that was a shocker for me, though. I have to tell you. I was like, oh, at the time.
Yeah.
What?
I meant to ask you before we came on to the podcast that I was going to say, are we going to say, do we have to sort of go the twist without saying what it was? But we have now. So if you were going to sit down and watch the Star Beast on TV in November, we've just ruined it. And there we are.
The way I look at it is, this came out in 1980. It has been out so many different times before. Through the issue that you two have got there, with Phil showed it earlier on. It's been out several times. It's been out as Doctor Who Marvel US, as you mentioned. It's been out in Classic Comics. It's been out with the more graphic novels. It's been out in IDW Classic. If you don't know by now, where have you been? Why have you missed this classic strip?
43 years. 43. Too soon. Too soon.
Excuse me. I
don't want to know what happens at the end of Titanic. You've had 43 years.
I'm not sure about this comment from Pete. Okay.
Good advice.
He's also saying, feels like Mrs. Wibsey all these years later, the lady. Yeah, well, that's it does, but again, it's quintessentially British, all this sort of stuff, isn't it? So here we go. We've got the Meep found in the shed. Obviously, the Meep's legacy has lasted all this time, and it just shows how fondly an entire generation took these beautiful comic strips to our hearts, because it wasn't the last time that the Meep actually appeared in the magazine. Years later, he turns up again. He does a cameo in another one. And we will, of course, be acknowledging the fact that he's now taking his big leap. They've managed to find him a job playing herself. And so that's all coming along. But the whole point of this is it just twists the whole story on its head, doesn't it? And the Doctor suddenly realizes, while he's having tea, that
that is the crux of the strip, isn't it? That it kind of hangs on. There's so much lovely background and color and lovely dialogue and gags and stuff, but the whole sort of linchpin of it is the twist in the middle, that you find out the Meep isn't the good guy; he's the bad guy all along. And I have to say, it's like, I was 8.5 at the time, and it worked for me. I didn't spot it coming, so I guess that's the ultimate kind of, there we are. That's the ultimate kind of measure, isn't it? It's like, does it work for an 8.5-year-old? Yes. So it performed its function, didn't it?
It did. And Phil, yet again, that speech there from the Fourth Doctor, it's actually very Tom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's brilliant. And the expression as well. It's a great panel, great square.
But you can it's like you were saying, you can hear the Fourth Doctor saying these sorts of things. They've captured him superbly. And Alistair, like you were saying here, what the brilliant thing about this, it was just the imagination here. There was no budget as such that they were limited by, hence the big spaceships, the big aliens into the normal world. But they were able to expand that for him. But it worked. It always worked. This version of the Doctor worked in this whole Marvel universe that they were actually very busy creating at the time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you've got to compare it, haven't you, to sort of TV comic stuff as well. The TV comic had some fun stuff going on, but it never felt, the Doctor never felt like the TV version. Most of the dialogue you could never imagine Tom saying. It was just bizarre. There's like Troughton kind of catchphrases and stuff. It was just all over the place. Whereas this felt, it's not exactly the same. It felt genuine enough that you could go with it, even though his scarf was in black and white, and there was the odd little format things like I totally took to the Doctor in the strips. the only thing that irked me a little bit when, as you do, when you're sort of 9 years old, it was the companions weren't there.
Oh yeah.
So it irked me, and it's weird. I'd kind of forgotten that this is the first strip that introduces K9. It doesn't really appear in it at all. So why pay the license to? You bring him in, and he's got his memory circuits are scrambled so that he thinks he's a cat, and so he just has little cameos through the strips. It's weird that they would have had to pay the license for that and then not actually use him. He doesn't take much part in it after when they land on the Wrath ship at the front of the strip. But after that, he takes just little cameos, which is just weird. But I remember that getting the first issue and sort of going, oh no, it's just like another one of those strips where everything's wrong and Romana's not in it. Why is Romana not in it? And then within about 2 episodes, you forget about that and just take it on its own terms. But yeah, it's weird that K9's brought in here and then does.
It's only because he was hugely popular. Let's face it. Hugely popular. They had to put him in.
Yeah, exactly. They probably thought it was worth paying the license for,
Well, it was. Yeah, go on, Phil.
We get the lovable Fudge and Sharon instead, don't we? And I think we all took them to our hearts.
Yeah, well, we did. Yeah. Well, I have to say, I knew a lad like Fudge.
You wish.
Because he clearly needs one.
It was one of those, and Sharon as well. I mean, Sharon. We have to state this. I've got a slide here somewhere as well. Sharon does become a companion. So she just joined the TARDIS at the end of this. Where is it? Oh, here it is. She just joined. There's Sharon, a normal schoolgirl. And she, this is the start of her journey with the Doctor. There's K9 in there as well, still pretending he's some sort of Cass. But it's a big story, this one, on many levels, and they get the continuity right as well. So, do you remember? Or you would have, you'll remember because you've seen it recently. But this bit here, Unit creeps up.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, Unit.
I loved that back then. That was a total surprise.
Mm-hmm. And that was at a time when Unit were very much out of Doctor Who. I don't think they'd been mentioned since. Had they been mentioned since Terror of the Zygons? I'm not sure. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Oh well.
Terror of the Zygons, Seeds of Doom. So Seeds of Doom is the last, because that's after Android Invasion. So I think after Seeds of Doom, that's it, because we didn't have any Brig in that, and so that's it. I don't think they're ever mentioned. You think about Leela. Think about the Leela era. Unit are never mentioned.
Oh, gone.
And then we go into Mary Tam's Romana, never mentioned. So I guess that was a lot of these Doctor Who Weekly as a whole was tapping into a lot of the history of the show, which the show itself maybe wasn't so much.
But it was so nice, though, wasn't it? I mean, when you see, when you see it, it makes perfect sense. And actually, back then, as a 10-year-old, I just took this for granted because, of course, Unit would be somewhere around about this. A spaceship's just crashed. There's possibly aliens going on. Of course, they'd be there, Phil.
Of course. I mean, it's their raison d'etre, isn't there? Something alien happens, they're going to be there, and it's just, it's not like a gratuitous kind of big deal. It's just they turn up because something's happened,
and then they get zapped.
Yeah,
it's kind of their role as well, isn't it?
To perform that function, you would have the army in the strip. You would have the army there, but it's so nice that they went, no, it should be Unit. And just
it shows they were paying attention. It's lovely for us as fans. Even today, when you read it, it's nice to see that because, of course, again, years ahead of the new version that you get from 2005 onwards. I mean, this is really. I put it to you, gentlemen, that this was the strip that influenced an entire generation of writers from 2005 onwards.
Yeah,
possibly. Yeah.
I think
it's all there.
It'll be interesting to see what, because I'm sure there'll be a round of interviews and whatever, but it'll be interesting to find out what Russell T says about it. What the strip meant to him, or what the influence of it was, beyond the obvious of doing this new version. That it does feel like, if you draw a through line from this to Survival, and then from Survival to Rose, because I can't think of anything pre-Survival that's as like Survival. It's certainly not in the TV show, because the TV show is all sort of country houses and quarries and whatever. It doesn't go down the high street. Doctor Who never appears in the high street to this point. It's like it's boarding schools in Modern Undead or whatever. It's those kind of settings. You don't get high street buses, etc., until you get really to survival, and then survival is then the jumping off point that takes you to the revival and Rose. So I think there is a point of view. I'm interested to see if Russell in any interviews mentions that, of where survival is often taken as a kind of jumping off point to the revival, but was the Star Beast as much an influence to that? Because it does stand up. I think it does stand apart from sort of all the other brilliant strips that appear in the weekly and the early monthly, because they're much more space opera, Judge Dreddy kind of.
Well, certainly when you look at the story that follows, because following the Star Beast, of course, we won't dwell on it, is the Dogs of Doom, which is a huge, big, fantastical thing, isn't it? The Dogs of Doom. Yeah. But the Star Beast is the only one at that point, and for quite a long time after, that is set in what you can actually take as being 1979, 1980 Britain. And that I think it just, when you're reading it, when you're looking at it, and with all the beautiful artwork and the story, which actually takes, okay, you can. There's a few elements there, and and Phil's mentioned one, but it does carry you along with it, and you do sort of recognize bits. As Phil was saying, you could just say there's a ship that's going to hit the ground anytime now, and then you'd be in the middle of it. But it really does take you through, doesn't it? I mean, it's just wonderful how this is, and when you've got over the shock that Meep isn't what you thought, and there's a real danger here. It really brings it home through the story. It's really clever how it makes you go along with it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. It's really nice how once you've got the reveal of Meep, it's like we've still got 3 episodes to go. So what do you do with that? So they have that thing with the Black Star drive, don't they? Or Dwarf Star drive, or the black hole drive thing, and the imminent danger of that, of it, rendering the planet and time vortex ripping apart or whatever. And so we have that great cliffhanger of that being activated, and we're being sucked into a black hole. There it is. Black Castle is sucked into a black hole. That fantastic cliffhanger.
I mean, look at that. That's beautiful.
You have the Doctor opening the next one with this kind of big splash panel, kind of tied to a frame thing, and sort of almost like he's being tortured and ripped apart by the force of the black hole. So that's the thing it uses to get you. Where do we go now? Do we just chase the Meep around the back streets? No, we don't. We invent this to up the stakes and to give you a big science fiction thing to happen. And that's what gets you to, through episodes, I think it's 7 and 8. It has to up the ante and do something else, which it definitely does, by bringing a big science fiction concept and something that's, visually going to be interesting and hold your interest and give you that big cliffhanger, rather than just, well, let's continue to chase the Meep around the back streets, which is, we've been there, so what do we do? So I think that's how it sustains its length, because the 8 parts are quite long. And I should remember, I made a slight mistake, and I'm going to correct myself.
You can't, it's live.
It's 17 pages for a US comic, not 16.
Oh, well, so there you go.
The first episodes and the 5th episode are 5 pages long, not 4, because they have that splash opener. So that comes to 17. So it's 17 in a US comic book, and that was how it was split. So it goes 5, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 4, 4.
There you go. There's an insight into that. What stood out for you, Phil, as part of this story when you're looking at it?
My big issue with the story comes from the whole Black Star Drive thing, because all of a sudden, sort of at the end of one part, the stakes become incredibly high and the entire Earth's being sucked into a black hole. And then next week, oh yeah, actually I turned it down, so yeah, everything's all right. And it's suddenly incredibly high stakes, but then resolved with something that happened that you didn't see, and you're like, oh, okay, well, let's crack on then, chasing the Meep around corridors and stuff. So, and it's the same issue I had with a lot of new Doctor Who, to be fair, is that the stakes just getting crazy high, and then it was all kind of resolved off screen with some kind of magic button.
Yeah, you've got a point. I didn't notice that when I was 10. I must admit, because you've got this. This is what you're talking about here, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's what. So yeah, suddenly, kind of out of nowhere, we know there's this Black Star Drive thing, but we don't really know anything about it. But then all of a sudden it sucks everything. It sucks Blackcastle into a black hole. The rest of Lancashire was all right. But then it's revealed that, yes, actually the rest of Lancashire was all right, because off stage to the side, the doctor...
As long as Angela Rippon was okay, I'm all right.
She was fine. She was fine. She got a bit of a stitch, but it's nothing she won't recover from.
That's all right then.
So yeah, and that's my issue. I don't know if it needed it. I mean,
I think Phil's being the rationalist there. It's a very rational reading of it, Phil.
I think possibly this is
Gordon earlier on. Surely that's what it is. It's Flash Gordon. You have the big cliffhanger, and then go, "Yes, I did this thing you didn't see." But yeah, that's kind of how it works, isn't it?
So perhaps my perception as a 42-year-old man is different to that of a 10-year-old in the 80s.
How old?
How old is it?
It could be that, because I didn't notice that at 10. I did notice it when I went back to it when I was in my late 20s. I just thought, hang on a minute, but then I forgot about it again recently.
Yeah, it's a bit
you do have a point, and again, it may have influenced writers of today. Who knows? That's where they may. Oh yeah, we can do this. But it's a great cliffhanger. Come on, we have to say this to viewers. That is a great cliffhanger.
It's brilliant.
It's always about the great cliffhanger, and then slightly pulls the rug. After,
it never happened in Dragonfire. There were no terrible cliffhangers in that.
Well, that wasn't a great cliffhanger, was it? I said a great cliffhanger. It's worth it. It's worth it for the great cliffhanger. If they slightly pull the rug. Dear. If you have a crap cliffhanger, then you've wasted the effort. You then cheat, but you didn't even give us the good cliffhanger. It's all about getting a good cliffhanger. How you get out of it, sometimes it's
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Three Doctors. You know, when the Unit HQ gets thrown into the black hole.
Yeah, the little Wizard of Oz sort of reference. Yeah,
I love that bit, because I didn't know about that until a year later in real life, because they didn't show the Three Doctors again until 81. That's the first time I saw that. So I'm watching that for the first time as the Five Faces of Doctor Who, and all I could think about was the Star Beast comic strip, thinking they've got that from the comic strip. Hang on. No, they haven't.
Can I just say, live, as we've been doing this live, it just occurred to me as we were talking about something else there, and I was saying that I grew up in Blackburn, or just outside Blackburn in Lancashire, and it's just occurred to me now that I'm going to suggest that this strip, Blackcastle, is a conjunction of Blackburn and Newcastle, and thus is set in the northwest and the northeast, whichever you choose. That's where the name comes from. I've just come up with that as we've been saying.
You've got something there.
So perhaps that's what it is. Blackcastle is Blackburn and Newcastle, thus the west and the northeast at the same time.
It's the generic north.
Which the South always said it was.
If I go up the A1, I'm going to get to the generic north. Capital city, Blackcastle.
Yeah, you come out from Barnet and it doesn't matter. So that's absolutely, that was it. It's much the same today.
Blackcastle from there on.
But it could be. I mean, because you've got, when you see that, where is it again? Let's bring that up again. When you see Blackcastle there, even in the pictures of it, it's very sort of industrial. Isn't it?
Well, it's the factory, because it lands, the spaceship lands in the factory, and then they've got the factory. There we go. Yeah.
You think this was planned, wouldn't you, Alistair? You think I'd planned all this?
Yes. So it's kind of, I suppose it's hinting at maybe the time, hinting at Newcastle and the shipbuilding tradition there. But that's it. It's got like a big factory in which they can repair this spaceship. Because that's where it lands. It lands in a big sort of industrial factory space. Although most of those things were actually pretty much gone by 79, 80, and that industry was pretty much wiped out, wasn't it? But
moved to Blackcastle.
It's still
they all got sucked into a black hole, Phil. The whole steel, everything. Alistair went straight into that, and we didn't quite get a lot of that back. The Doctor didn't fix it all in that particular. Let's blame him. Let's blame him. We've got Gary's joined us. Hello, Gary. Nice to see you, mate. Influence from Disney's The Black Hole, which was out that year? ? I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, I would have thought they would have had to write this the year before.
I think Gary could be right there, because the Black Hole was, I think came out for Christmas '79. I went to see it. It was amazing. Saw it in the cinema. So I think it was out at this point. but it was one of those big films that was hyped and hyped and hyped for months before. It was probably hyped from that Disney were doing this project from at least the summer we would have known about it in the UK. So I think he's probably right.
Yeah.
But again, it was based 1999, had black hole stories and stuff, but he could be right. He could well be black.
Well, they always look good in a comic strip, don't they, Phil? And we've got here as well, Peter. Peter can say this because he's from that part of the world. He's saying there's a black hole in Liverpool, so that's where all the money goes, and has done for decades. That's all we're saying on that one. We don't want to get political. All right there? All right, peace? All right, La? We're not going to get that. And then Garbage is here saying, I like The Black Hole. Wasn't that the only dark film that Disney made at the time? We'll avoid that subject as well because we'll get too relevant to today because they're all over the shop now. But thanks for joining us, viewers. Nice to see you all. Please like this. Please share this. Yeah, go on. You know you want to. And keep the chat coming along. So we've got this fantastic story here. We were talking about Phil's favorite bits, but the brilliant thing about all this was it was epic. They could do certain things that the TV show tried to do. Now this looks good. It doesn't necessarily in Nightmare of Eden, does it?
It's like though, it's kind of the opening to Star Wars. This and
yes, I was hoping one of you would say that. Yes,
Flash Gordon-y, and that's what I love about it. It's huge and it's alien, and yeah, I mean, it would have looked great done with some crappy models and some green screen, wouldn't it? I do. I love that. I love that.
What I love about that panel, actually, just rereading it as like nice guy, is that now hear this, you're under arrest. This is because huge, like massive lettering in thick felt tip. And at the bottom's a tiny. I don't even see it. They have a tiny little meep. Tiny little speech bubble at the bottom just to emphasize the size difference. So. Nice bit of work there. Nice.
Yeah, but
you could easily put those bubbles in the same size. But
you didn't want to.
Huge bubble and a tiny bubble.
I love the fact that speech bubble for Meep there is very small because at that point he knows the game is up, the gig is up, he's in trouble, and he's like, meep. And I can in my mind's eye, I always saw him going, no, I'm going to be cute again now because he's always going on. He's a nasty piece of work. Let's bring that picture up there. I mean, look at him here. I mean, he's got a little crown on and everything. He's camp.
Yeah, but the tripod's brilliant. I love his little War of the Worlds tripod. He just wanders about him just to make him a bit taller.
Yeah, you will obey me, you humans. Yeah, it's brilliant though, isn't it? I mean, look, I always noticed the fact he's wearing that little crown. All hail beep of all the Meeps. It's not camp at all. I mean, there he is. Oh, meep, meep, meep. He's so grand, and then suddenly these big insecty things get him thanks to the doctor and stuff, and he actually turns it on, doesn't he? Because this is the beauty of that character. Look at this.
Yeah,
it wasn't my fault. Look at the tears. Look at the tears. Please. And this is what set us up to be wary of future girlfriends and boyfriends for the rest of our lives. Because never trust them when they put the waterworks on, boys and girls. Don't let them cut my furry little head off, Sharon.
Sharon turns on him, doesn't she?
Yes,
doesn't
even
for
like
that the next panel is like, I hate you. Yeah, this is the one. Look how angry that old bald man is.
Yeah, you're not very fond of the illustrations for Sharon there, are you?
I find her a bit terrifying. She is just like, the Grim Reaper or something. It's a scary old man's face. It's a bizarre choice.
Yeah.
I suppose we should, sort of put that out there and I don't know, it's been remarked on down the years or whatever. Worth saying, I guess, first regular Doctor Who companion of colour.
Yeah.
And none of us knew about it. None of us blinked an eyelid. Back in 1980, of all decades, none of us blinked an eyelid. It was just Sharon. This was Sharon. And she was coming on board to keep the Doctor company because they couldn't get the rights to the companions. And why would you want to when you can create your own? But Sharon's gone down as a bit of a legend herself.
Forward-looking and diverse before diversity and cheap. So yeah. Although I just point before anyone writes in and says, I think you'll find there was a previous companion of colour, which was Max, I think his name was, in the Xeron Invasion Pertwee strip in TV action. However, of course, he didn't go on as a continuing.
No, we've got one story, wasn't he?
So one colour Pertwee story. So yeah. Just to point that out for anyone who writes in and says, I think you'll find. No, I think you'll find. So just
Well, with Doctor Who fans, it could happen, and they do have my email address, so it could
I think
happen.
there's someone really disappointed in the comments now, pressing backspace. I think he'll. Oh.
Speaking of which, there it is. whosviews1@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with me. That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, looking at this, from where we started to going back, you're not fooled at this point, are you? You really are not fooled. So it's no wonder that Sharon does turn on him. And again, the beautiful illustration there, it brings it all out, these fake tears, because he doesn't stop at this point. He really lays it on. Oh, don't let them kill me, and don't let them do. I mean, it's just wonderful, the artwork that comes through this. It's absolutely stunning. The shadowing, I don't know how they managed to. Obviously, you can get color versions of this now. I can't imagine it. And I suppose it's like being a Doctor Who fan of the black and white era. You can't imagine it being colored.
Yeah. I mean, it's set up. I mean, they always knew that it was likely. Again, it was that Marvel premiere thing. They always expected it to be coloured elsewhere, be coloured
for foreign audiences,
foreign audiences. But it's done beautifully for the black and white. And remember that the newsprint is not the best on this, so it stays nice and crisp and nice and bold. A lot of bold outlines. Because Gibbons had worked on 2000 AD for a number of years on like Dan Dare and stuff, and it was always very bold, very big lines, because 2000 AD had crap print. It was toilet paper. So actually the weekly was better, but it really lends itself to that much bolder work, which people like Gibbons and Ball and All sort of learned in their early days. I think stuff was a lot bigger then, bigger outlines and heavier shading, and a lot of use of Lectratone. If anyone remembers Lectratone, which is
now too young,
sort of stick down, rub down, dot screen there that allows you to have grey. So the best artists knew how to use that, so they could have a foreground and a background by putting in these kind of grey film, like a grey sticky film that went over. Give it, so it wasn't just black and white; it had shades of grey as well. Not 50 Shades of Grey.
No, thank goodness. Well, I don't know.
Hey, look. As many shades of grey as you need.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just looks absolutely stunning to this day. And do you know what? I compare it, and I possibly shouldn't, but I do. You've got kids, Phil, as well. I look at that artwork that we grew up with in this comic strip, especially in Doctor Who Weekly, because I've got them all from the original days, and I look at them all, and I look at the quality, and I look at it, and then I look at some of the comic strips of today. And I'm not trying to get at some of the artists around today, because they're doing their own thing. It's a different generation. But I don't see the likes of what we've been talking about tonight. I really don't. But I reckon if you give something like Doctor Who Weekly now, like your graphic novel you've got there, I reckon if you give it to the kids now, I think they'd love this. They get it. They buy into it straight away.
So despite all of my attempts to get either of my boys to get into classic Doctor Who, it's too slow for them. It loses their interest. But I can sit down with a comic because it's that kind of, well, exactly the sort of things I've been poo-pooing as a 42-year-old reader. It's all these, there's, something exciting happens a little bit, and then something else exciting happens. And yeah, it keeps their interest more. So we can sit down and flick through with comics in the same way that we couldn't sit down and watch Time Lash, for instance.
That's brilliant.
It doesn't date. If you can get kids to read comics now, because I guess to them it's a slightly alien format.
Oh, it's an old-fashioned thing. It's a quaint thing I used to do in there.
Oh, really?
The pacing and it doesn't have those pacing and budget issues that like Time Lash would. So it probably is more likely to succeed with a younger audience.
So they will happily read through my old annuals. They read through the Doctor Who ones, the Captain Scarlets, all of that, and they like it because it's fast and it's what they're used to watching now on YouTube and young people things.
Yeah, because the young people think. Yeah, because they can read it at their speed as well. And the Star Beast actually can be read when you've got it in the graphic novel like you've got. It can be read very, very quickly, especially by young people as well.
10-year-old sits down, reads that 20 minutes.
Exactly. And as long as they're getting involved in the story and they're getting something out of it and they're able to, enjoy it and be thrilled by it in some way. I mean, it's great as well. I mean, can I ask you about your lads? Have you shown them the Star Beast in preparation for what's coming in November 2023?
Well, no, because they're not really interested in what's coming up in
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Because Doctor Who's this funny old thing that I watch. Yeah, like if you show them a clip on YouTube, they'll like it. It's just all of the tedious story part around it that, you know, it's just too slow for them. Yeah. So
I was hoping to have a really decent adult conversation there about they love this, so we'll skip that. I've got this comment
One of them
here.
likes football. Imagine my disappointment.
Kids have no attention span. Let's just leave it there. They have no attention span because they understand delayed gratification. They have to have everything now. Until
well, that's true. That's very true.
When they reach the age of 18, their heads will explode, like in scanners.
It's inevitable
because they'll be overloaded with so much crap stimulus that they will their heads will explode.
Here's another Doctor Who comic strip coming up. That could look really good in a comic strip. Gary's talking about the picture we showed before this one, that particular picture there, because Gary has made a comment and he's saying there's cats who pull that face. I think you're absolutely spot on there, because I think that's the whole point of it. Because when a cat knows it's done wrong, and a dog too, to an extent, they do, don't they? They start to well up and they start to go, and that's exactly what the Meep did there. Well, I mean, it's really, really cool. I mean, this is the whole thing about the Star Beast now. And as Alistair was saying earlier as well, the reason that we're looking at this now, and I've got the guys on to talk about it and review it, is simply because, as we all know, Meep the Beep and the story of the Star Beast is about to hit the television for the first time ever. And Russell T Davies has made it known that, yes, this Doctor Who weekly comic strip, it's obviously very influential to him, has been made into the first of the 60th anniversary specials. And it's interesting, really, because when I saw one of the stills, it screamed comic strip to me.
Yeah, that keep out sign.
Yeah. And
that's been on like a million Beanos across the world.
Yeah, it's one of these things that we as kids back in the day, I always wanted the shed just to put a keep out sign in it. And this is obviously the shed that the Meep is found in. But look, it's an off TARDIS blue. It doesn't look quite right. It looks like it's falling down. It's a little bit shacky. But it's very comic strip. And it screams comic. And I just think that is actually quite a nice little touch. I really like that.
And it's got that kind of same glow as the TARDIS in the old days. Well, in the kind of Tennant era where it was kind of gold inside. So the whole thing looks like new TARDIS.
I have to tell you, Phil, but when I was a kid, I didn't know anybody that had a shed with light inside it. No, because we didn't have electricity going out there. What you did? You were lucky to have electricity in the house. Never mind going to a shed.
You had an inside toilet.
That's true. I'll say something, kids. In 1980, a lot of us didn't have this thing called central heating. That was magic to some of us.
Toilet paper. We never had toilet paper.
I remember going to school, the toilets in the school, like in this story. It was
that greaseproof paper. Just needed it.
Please, you were crying just with that, weren't you? Anyway, we won't get too graphic on that one. But, you know, you had all this sort of stuff. So we've got that picture there. We've got this, which I love it. As I say, I think it screams comic strip. I think it's a nice little homage. But the other little homage itself, of course, is that the fact that this fella here is now this. So, wow. I mean, it's a lovely thing for them to do. They've got it. They've caught something there. It must be very difficult to actually try and get this iconic character to many of us and put it together. But, you know, look at it. I mean, it's fairly faithful, isn't it? You know exactly who it is.
And presumably it'll change. You know that it's not going to. I can't never know if it's the Meep or he's the Beep or Meep the Beep or Beep the Meep. But anyway, the Meep. I always call him the Meep.
Meep, I say Meep. Yeah.
The expressions will change, so presumably his kind of physical form will change, and sort of his expression will be all over his kind of body, if you like. So I assume he will have he, she, whatever, hermaphrodite, whatever it is now, will have a sort of alter ego version when the gig is up. You know, it will change into a different kind of form. Yeah, it'll
be all flighty, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably what could happen. Yeah, because they can do all this now with CGI, can't they, Phil? And the fact that they've hired Miriam Margolyes, however you want to say that, Margolyes. Yeah. Everybody says it differently. For the voice there, she can go from cutesy chocolate rabbit to actually quite vicious.
Absolutely terrifying, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I didn't want to say, but we will say that she can be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Controversial chat.
I remember her in the 90s, for heaven's sake. And yeah, I mean, here's another picture for you in case you haven't seen it today as we are broadcasting live. The new issue of Doctor Who magazine, the cover has been announced. It's out later this week as we're broadcasting. And in a sense, it's absolutely 100% correct what they do with this, because there's the new version mixed with the old. And I think that is magical. There's the frame that we know here with this new version. I mean, isn't that? I love this cover, actually.
Yeah, that's the first I've seen it. I've been working today, so I haven't seen really any social media and stuff today at all. So that's new to me. But that looks terrific. Looks great. I'll let you in a little secret actually. On the inside, when you look inside, you will find something which belonged to me.
Is it a free gift?
No.
Oh,
I'll give you a little hint. You might be seeing that inside.
Oh, I'm now intrigued, and you heard it here first. When you get your Doctor Who magazine,
little Easter egg for the fans. Yeah.
Different times.
Absolutely different times there. But I just think that is wonderful. That there he is. Yeah, obviously, they are celebrating beautifully the important role that Doctor Who Weekly has played. Even the logo's in the right place to the original frame. Doctor Who and the Star Beast. I mean, I just think it's so clever. And look at him there. He's all, look at me. I'm so cute. It's like me on a Saturday night. Look at me. I'm so cute. And it turns on the Sunday. But it's all there for you. Let's see what the guys are saying or what everybody's saying there. Garbage wants to know, will Meep be non-binary? Probably. Let's have a look. Yeah, they're still going on about toilets. Peter is saying they had an outside toilet. Winters were difficult. Oh, happy days in the old day. And then, what's this that Gary's saying? They want a comics look because they're after that Marvel DC multiverse generation. It could just be because it was a great story as well, Gary. You know, that's I love it. I think I'm actually quite interested to see how it's going to transfer to an hour or whatever they're going to do, because it can be very action packed, and the little snippets we've had so far, you know, you've seen them, you know, it could be very interesting. So yeah, so that's all that there, and of course it's all coming up in November. And of course, we will be here to review the actual TV episode of the Star Beast here on Who's Views. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you get actually, when the BBC tell us what the dates are going to be, you'll be able to get...
If we're not busy doing something else, we'll be here.
It's nearly time, everybody, for scores on the TARDIS doors. But before that, let's have a look at this. Yes, indeed. Next time on Who's Views Reviews, Halloween season kicks off, and we will be looking at the Pyramids of Mars. So join us as we look at this Tom Baker classics. Yeah, so from Tom in the comic strip to real Fourth Doctor with the wonderful Liz, much missed Liz Sladen as well as Sarah Jane. Okay, so yeah, it is coming up to scores on the TARDIS doors. If you want to play along, please put scores out of 10 in the comments. Let's run the graphic. All right, then. So I'm going to start with Phil's scores on the TARDIS doors. Out of 10 from you, please.
Oh, angsting about it. I'm going a strong 8.
Woo! That's
you turned on it. Okay, I approached it to English literature exam, I think, and what I should have done is approached it 10-year-old Phil, and I've U-turned. Yeah. I think I quite like it. Let's take it as it is. It's an 8.
It's an 8 out of 10 from Phil. Thank you very much. Alistair, what about you? Out of 10, what are you going to give it?
I'm so glad you've asked me, because I was trying to put it in the comments there and realised I hadn't logged in to use the comments. So anyway, I'll just tell you using my voice. Yes. For me, it's got to be a strong, definitive 10.
Whoa, that is fabulous. That's fabulous.
Not just one of the best Doctor Who comic strips, but one of the best Doctor Who stories of all. That's all I'm saying. Classic Doctor Who. 10 out of 10.
And it's no wonder that they're actually taking it to the telly. Let's be honest. From my point of view, why is it a budget? Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have liked to have seen it.
Can you no little guy, midget man, diminutive actor.
Jimmy Cranky. It would be Jimmy Cranky in a fake fursuit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I would have been all that. I mean, it would have been very panto. I'm surprised John didn't do it. That's true. Yeah, John would have had a great time with that one if he'd thought about it, wouldn't he? Can you imagine? What else we got? From my point of view, because I love this, as hopefully it's come through, I'm giving it a 10 as well. So it's getting a 10 out of 10 and 10 scores on the TARDIS store. Gary's giving it here 10 as a kid, 8 now. Excellent 2 scores from Gary. I've had no other scores from you. Like, what's going on with you? Come on, you're usually giving me loads of scores here. Obviously, maybe they haven't looked at it. Maybe they didn't know about it. Maybe they're all too young. Liars. But that's not a problem. That's not a problem at all. If you've got a comment about the Star Beast, if you've looked at it, if you were there at the time, put it in the comments box and give me a wee message in the comments box when you're looking at this. I'm so excited that this is going to be happening because I do love this. It's absolutely wonderful. So, hang on. Let's have another message. Who's this? Who's this? I see. Garbage is saying he hasn't seen it because he's too young. He's too young. He's about your age, Phil. It's too young.
Well, he was spending too much time on that posh toilet with an outside light of his. He should have been reading on that. It's got no excuse.
There is that as well. There is that. If you recognise Alistair, by the way, down there, it's possibly because you've seen the show that he and I did on the Merchandise Paradise playlist, where he was talking about his new publication that's available from Telos. It's called the Fanzine Book, which actually sold out and is now available on a reprint copy. So well done to Alistair for that. So if you want to know more about the Fanzine Book, go to our show, Merchandise Paradise, on the Merchandise Paradise playlist. Have a look at that, and you can get it from telos.co.uk. There you go. There's a wee plug for you. Have you got anything that you've written recently, Phil? No, didn't think so. Garbage is saying here, posh, he wishes. Oh, and Adam's here. Adam, thank you. Adam's saying 9 out of 10. Love it.
Clearly insane.
Love it. And Pete's saying, thanks, La, a 9. It's done well. The Star Beast, considering that some of us are of a certain vintage. We can't tell what's going on it. Well, Garbage is also saying here, when I first saw it, I thought it said Alistair McGown. Oh, you get that a lot, don't you? You get that a lot, mate.
But thanks for sticking with us, eh?
Not him. I wish I had his money. Yeah.
And Gary's saying, just to say, The Tides of Time is his favourite Doctor Who magazine. Well, listen, Gary and the others, let us know, because this could be a nice little different thing every now and then. We could review these if you want us to.
They're going to adapt that one next season. No, I'm joking. I'm having a laugh. Oh, that is you going.
Do you know what? I think for a minute I've got an exclusive. How do you know? I'm about to go into full interview mode, and he said, "Oh, having a laugh."
I like that guy that posted last night on Twitter. Yes, the Celestial Toymaker has been found, and it's going to be released in time for the anniversary. Yeah, thanks.
But we all go like this, don't we? We all get outraged. We all go. Don't we? In our very British way, we say, oh, please, we've seen all that before. Listen, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome back to Who's Views, Alistair. Welcome to Who's Views, Phil. It's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming and joining me to review the Star Beast from Doctor Who Weekly. Hope you've enjoyed this slightly different review show for us. As I say, next time we're going to be back with Pyramids of Mars. So get watching that. Get ready for all your comments. Please don't forget to share. And also don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. Here I go, Phil. Watch this. Ring that bell so that you actually get notifications of when we're next actually going live or dropping you something gorgeous. Yes, you never know what could be happening on this show. I certainly don't. It's all going, it all goes wherever we're going now. But you certainly want to be with us in November because we want as many views as possible because it is Who's Views, our views, and your views. It's everybody's views on this show. So thank you very much. And I say thank you very much to the guys here for joining us. Thank you for watching us. And until next time, we will see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheerio.